So people don't know this, but getting on Shark Tank is harder than getting into Harvard.
You're spending all this time and then they're like, well, thanks so much. I don't think this is for me. And you're like, what are you, you're supposed to stay here for like 10 years.
You're
Wow.
making more than me and I'm not paying you enough? That's crazy. Now I'm only hiring people who know more than me. I'm not coaching nobody else up. So sorry, I come with the batteries already included.
Welcome to ECOM Verified, everyone. We are here with a very, very special guest. As you know, we always try to find the best ecom founders to be able to walk through their story, to be able to walk through their journey so that they can share the things that are working for them and also walk you through some of the difficulties and bottlenecks that you might have. So I have a very special guest today. Her name is Kimberly Lewis. She is a very, very notable founder who is the co-founder of CurlMix with her husband. It is a hair care brand that specializes in products for people with curly hair. She has generated a lot of attention in her business and a lot of success behind it. So I'm looking forward to chatting with her and some of the really unique strategies and some of her really unique strengths today. Kim, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and hopefully I can leave a few pieces of advice for ecom founders coming up.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it, but I just wanted to start off a little bit with your story for those that don't know who you are, don't know what you have going on. Do you mind giving us a little insight of how CurlMix started, how you saw kind of the gap in that market and your personal experience through starting the brand?
Yeah, CurlMix started as a do-it-yourself box for curly hair. So think Blue Apron, but for hair. Did that for a couple of years and found that our best-selling kit was our flaxseed gel. And basically, the flax seeds that you would normally eat, you might put in a smoothie or something like that as an egg substitute. When you boil them, you get a really gooey gel. You extract the gel, and we put it in a bottle. And at the time, it was just not on the shelf anywhere. Most brands are using synthetic gel, and they were putting like flaxseed oil in it, which is not the same as boiling raw flax seeds at our facility and extracting the gel.
Right.
And so we did that, pivoted the business. We landed ourselves on Shark Tank, and we ended up creating a 4-step system to help you master your curls in 21 days. And so that's what we saw on our website. That's what's available in Ulta. And it's a 10 ingredient gel. Most gels have like 20 ingredients. We literally manufacture this 10 ingredient gel on the south side of Chicago.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, and obviously you mentioned a lot of things there that I'd like to dissect a little bit. The first one that you mentioned was being on Shark Tank. How was that experience, and how did you guys even decide that you wanted to do that and go from like, hey, we're just launching our dream business to, man, let's do this with Shark Tank?
So people don't know this, but getting on Shark Tank is harder than getting into Harvard. I'm not kidding. Like the stats are crazy. I think only 80 people make it on the show, and there are about 40,000 that apply each year.
Wow.
So and I think it's like the acceptance rate is like below 1% something. So Harvard's acceptance rate is higher than that. So that's crazy. 1, 2, it's a part-time job. So if you actually get a call back, it's like exciting, but it's also like get ready for the ride because we probably rewrote our pitch 8 different times. And it's first and foremost, it is entertainment. So if you don't have a good story, a good feel-good story, or a good like emotional story, or a shocking story, if there's no emotion behind whatever it is that you do, then like you probably won't air because they're in the business of Shark Tank wins Emmys. Right. I always remind people. And so when we first went to be on the show, we were maybe making like, I don't know, 30. We had just hit our first 50K a month back when we were doing just the flaxseed gel. And we ended up, my aunt recommended us. She's like, hey, they're doing casting down at the university in the city. You might want to check it out. And at the time, my baby's 6 months, and we're still making everything ourselves. We have no team. It's just 2 of us. It's crazy. We decided to just take him with us because we couldn't get childcare. And it was in the middle of the day. So we took him with us to the pitch. He's literally in a stroller. And as we like do the pitch or whatever, he starts crying in the middle of the pitch. And I was like, oh God, like surely they were not going to make it on the show now. Like he's crying. And then at the end of it, the director's like, Kim and Tim, I like it. And so she like kind of writes a little scribble on the back of her piece of paper. And then 2 weeks later, we get a call. Or we get an email. It's like, basically like, you've been made it to the next round. And we thought like, oh my God, we're gonna be on the show. But that's not what that meant. That was just like, you're gonna get a call back from producers. And so then they basically coach you up. Then you have to submit another video that's like 7 to 8 minutes long. And then it's like you pitching yourself all over and you're telling your story more in depth. And then they help you refine your pitch from that. And then everything that you see people with on the show, they paid for. So
Right.
those big elaborate displays, getting themselves there, the people who are there with them, the models, they coordinated all of that effort. And
Oh
then
wow.
sometimes if you go to the show and you pitch the producers before you pitch the sharks, they'll cut out things that you probably have planned that you already paid for.
Uh-huh.
So you're like, wait a minute. This is no. I remember one time like we had our models and they were like, oh, we do even need the models because I had models to showcase the before and after hair.
Yeah.
And they were going to literally send my models back home. I was like, "Huh, I paid for these flights. I want them in this demonstration. What are you doing?" So it was kind of crazy. And then when I actually go to pitch, the first 30 seconds, you walk down the runway and then you're standing there for about 30 seconds. Lights, it's thousands of cameras. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's in one of those like trailers. Like it's not like a crazy fancy building. It's like, no, it's a movie show, like a movie show set.
Yeah.
And you're standing there and you're looking at more than $1 billion in net worth on the other side of the room. So for
Mm-hmm.
30 seconds, you stare at Mark Cuban, you stare at Robert, you stare at Barbara, you stare at just all the sharks, and then you have to say your pitch. And I think they do that to kind of create this tension. And they manufacture it because you're freaking out, and if you mess
Yeah.
up, they don't give you a chance to redo it. So don't fuck it up,
Don't mess up. You got to do it perfect.
You gotta do it perfect. But we have practiced this so many times, and we did Shark Tank. Like we didn't just treat it like a TV show. We treated it like we were talking to real investors. So
Yeah.
I had maybe 100 note cards with 100 different questions, 3 different bullet points for answering, and we would quiz each other in the car for weeks leading up to the show. And I mean,
Wow.
it was like the biggest final ever. So it was really intense. But it was a great practice because I've never actually won money in a pitch competition. Like
Mm-hmm.
of the 100 I've done, of the millions I've raised in crowdfunding, I've never won money in a pitch competition. But I did get an offer for $400,000 for 20% equity stake on Shark Tank, which we ended up turning down because we had decided on our BATNA the night before, the better alternative to negotiating an agreement. And essentially, we were like, we're not going to give it more than 20%. I mean, 15% of the company, and we're not going to do it for more than $400,000. And Robert was like, "What? I can't believe she didn't take the deal." Robert also said he didn't know anything about hair, and he said that he didn't know anything about the industry, and that he was just going to be a check. And we were like, like a bank could be a check. And we were
Yeah.
making $1 million a year at that time too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. So you guys decided not to go with the deal. And then what was kind of the next step in the journey? Because obviously that probably catapulted you guys forward, not only like within your own motivational thoughts of like, man, we can actually make this happen. This is real. How did that catapult you guys forward, and what were kind of the next steps that happened?
So even after you pitch, you don't know for sure if you're going to air.
Oh, okay.
So we had done all this, gotten the offer, turned it down, just didn't even know if we were going to air. But we took that potential of airing and went to angel investors and said, "Hey, can you cut us a deal?" And we
Mm-hmm.
got our first offer for like a $6 million valuation at the time, which I feel like was more fair, given that we were making $1 million back then. And this is earlier too. This is in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018 or so. So market was different. And we got an offer, but I ended up turning it down. And then I ended up getting an offer from after the show ends up airing. Now, mind you, I probably have like a decent amount of debt at this time. The show ends up airing. We do really well. And then I get a call from the former CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner, and his partner. And they gave me $1 million investment at like a $11 million valuation.
Very
So that
cool.
was
That's awesome. And that kind of catapulted you guys forward. One of the things that you mentioned was one of your kind of expertises that you've done a couple times now was getting kind of some funds and investments for your brands. What are kind of the keys to that? Like for someone that's listening, that's like, man, I need some funding as well. I know that you mentioned on the show that you wanted to get funding for product because you guys were running out of product and you couldn't keep it on the shelf and you were always in back order. So if someone that's in that same situation, what would be kind of your advice to them to go out and do the same thing that you did? Obviously, not everyone's going to get put on Shark Tank, so that can't
Yeah,
always
for
be there.
sure. One thing I've learned is that investors need a reason to invest, and not just because, oh my gosh, like you're growing. it usually has to be some kind of time thing that gets them to move. Right. So for us, it was, hey, we're just on Shark Tank. We're about to air. And we had gotten like a little bit of like seed money from them before it aired. And then more money was after it aired. So it's not just one or two things. It's a couple of things. It has to be like some kind of catalyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we were going into Ulta, that's when we got our next investment. When we were on Shark Tank, we got an investment. Like those kind of things. People also need to see the up and to the right hockey stick growth. That's going to be a big one. If they don't see that, you're gonna have a really hard time raising any kind of capital. So even if you got to stair step your growth, plan out your ad spend, plan out your hits, campaigns, all the things, like you got to be able to show that up and to the right line. Otherwise, people aren't going to really get on board.
Right.
And then because they only want to give you money when you don't need it. So that's the truth.
It makes sense.
It's like when you know you got a good house on the market. If you don't
Uh-huh.
want to sell it, that's how you know it'll move, right?
Exactly.
If you don't want to take the investment and you don't need to, that's how you know you'll get it. You know?
Yeah. That's funny.
So, huh?
I said that's funny.
It is. That's the way it works though. So I would say up into the right hockey stick growth. I would say some kind of catalyst or thing that you need the money for that's really going to push the business forward. And I would also say there's some fundamentals in fundraising, which are having a network, going to all these different pitch competitions, even when you don't win money.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's this level of like follow up, having a newsletter that you send out to investors every month that says, hey, here's what I'm doing. These are the last trailing 3 months of revenue. Here's what I'm doing next month. Here's the 3 biggest wins. Because that's how I got the intro to Jeff, who wrote me the $1 million check. It wasn't just like he just saw me on Shark Tank. He kind of already had a intro to me through one of my other investors who I had been keeping up with, and I had 12 months of trailing information from. And so she trusted me enough to make that recommendation because we had been emailing for 12 months. So it's similar to me as if you worked on a fundraising political campaign where
Yeah.
you're emailing people and keeping up and connecting and going to events and all of this stuff. Like that's a part of it too. But if you don't have the right up into the right hockey stick growth, you don't have a catalyst, then like just following up with people and going to networking events is not going to yield you money. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously the two go hand in hand, but I think that's super important for people to understand that it's not just like I'm going to go decide to get some funding and then it's easy and you get some funding. Like, no, it's months of work and following up and very similar to even like exiting a company, right? Like it takes time. It's not something you're just like, well, I'm going to exit today. Who wants to buy it? You know what I mean? Like it takes some time to do that kind of stuff. What were some of the challenges that you guys faced in the beginning of CurlMix?
And I also want to add, I had to make $1 million before I could raise $1 million.
True.
So I had to put my own money up. So we were already making $100,000 a month as a business, and I already used my own credit to get us there. But some challenges that we faced early in the business. I think one thing I wish I had gotten right in the business early on is figured out my metrics for profit. In the beginning, I just focused on growth because I knew that that's all investors cared about.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten bigger, I've had to go back and correct some things. Things that my team was too large to begin with, right? And so now I had to kind of like get leaner quickly in this economy, right? Because this economy is different than the one that I raised in 5-6 years ago. And so I like, what's his name? Maz from Native. He always talks about having 1 million, one employee per $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else can be contractors, but as far as people who are getting benefits and all those things, 1 employee per $1 million. So that was something I wish I had done early on. Some of the challenges we faced in the beginning, I just had a consultant kind of come in and let me know that we don't survey our customers enough. Like he was like, those big brands don't guess at anything.
Yeah.
Don't guess at anything. If you think you want to launch a product, don't guess. Survey people. You think you want to do a new marketing initiative, you want to go out and get 20 videos that look like this, don't guess, test. Test everything, survey everyone, and I was just like, we don't function like that. A lot of in the beginning, it was more of I have a gut feeling about this, or this is my intuition's telling me this. Mm-hmm. And really, once you start to grow, you can't rely on that. And what we used was our Facebook group to get a lot of real-time feedback from customers. So we would post surveys in there, quick little polls. Would you rather we do this or this? And we kind of got a little bit away from that. So just doing more of that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned your Facebook group because obviously that was a huge catalyst for your brand and for the potential and building that community. how did you guys come up with the idea? Like, what made you think like, oh, we should do a Facebook group? And then how did you guys execute on
Oh, why did we do a Facebook group? I think, oh, I remember. So we have hair care products, right? And I think the
Right.
numbers go, and I have to double check this, but repeat purchase in hair care on ecom is like 13%. I think that's the number I found, which is
Yeah.
low, right? Typically you want like a 20%, 30% repeat rate. And ours is 25%. So I was always like, okay, well, we're doing better than standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not as good as somebody who does like straight up clothes or something that might has like a 40% repeat rate or 50%, something like that. And I remember my customer service manager at the time being like, Kim, they don't know how to do their hair. People don't know that they even need to rinse out shampoo. They're like, don't rinse out the shampoo. And I was like, what? And there's just things I think that are commonplace that people didn't get. And so she was like, you need to show them how to do your hair live. Like, go live on Facebook in your shower. I was like, what? I was like, you're crazy. She's like, no, like they need it. Like my customer service manager convinced me to go live. And we were trying to like kind of people were complaining a lot too because they didn't know how to use
Mm-hmm.
the product. So they get it and they're frustrated. It was $30. And so we were like, we make a Facebook group, they can put their complaints in there. Instead of just being all over the internet, they feel like they want somebody to hear what they have to say. We'll make a Facebook group so they can complain in the Facebook group.
Everyone can
And
just bag on us the whole time.
right. And it ended up being probably the best thing we ever did because it actually created if you think about this from a customer perspective, right? Let's say I'm buying, I don't know, from some supplement brand. And the only way I can communicate with the brand is through what? Email and posting, probably comments on their Instagram. That's it. It's a one-way communication into customer service. But how do I talk to everybody else who's buying the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I think that TikTok is working, right? Because people are like, it's like, oh, TikTok made me buy it. So you can almost talk to somebody else who bought the same thing that you bought. Well, our group is pretty much that, except you don't have to be a content creator to do that. So
Right.
we add the people who all bought the same thing to help each other. And that's how we built our community. So now we have 18,000 CurlMixers in that Facebook group. You can only get in
Wow.
if you're a customer. And it has like 80% engagement. So that means somebody posts, like, comment, or whatever in the last 30 days. And when I tell you these women, like our customers, they love each other. And what do I mean when I say that? They held a toy drive for people who were less fortunate than them. And
That's
they put
awesome.
any extra CurlMix that they had in it as well. And they gave away 60 different kits. Not just hair stuff, but like tissue and paper and pens and toilet, like anything you might need for your house. And they gave it to women and gave it to a homeless shelter,
That's
right?
awesome.
They also have found CurlMixers in need in the group that they sent money to. Like, oh, she lost her job. Da da da. She was so active in the community. We want to help her. They go to each other's houses and do each other's hair for them. Like, say, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, you're struggling, girl. Well, you're in the DMV area. Just come to my house. I'll help you. Literally. And they'll post pictures about it. And so now they get together to go to like different wine nights or they had what is it? A wine tasting birthday party for one of our curly members, and like
Oh, wow.
10 people from the group showed up. Like they do look like it's their friend group, and we
Yeah.
service women over 50. Like Black women over 50 is our target demo, and so because we're so specific, they have found sisters in one another. And so we also go live with that. So the group that really just started out as a customer service like pocket to help people blossomed into like this live masterclass selling program where it's like, hey, let's teach you how to do your hair, but also here's an offer. And then
Mm-hmm.
it blossomed into masterclass. So now we do a new cohort every month with an expert stylist and one of our top curl mixers to show people how to do their hair. So our customer goes live 3 times a week in that group. And then we hired an expert stylist in Washington Ghost to do a Zoom every week, answering any kind of questions, Q&A. Like we really help people. And we probably have, I don't know, at our peak we had a few thousand women in that group at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Now we probably do like about 1,000 a month. But those people who take that 30-day challenge or whatever with their hair, they come back, I think, like within 30 days. And it's for that reason. It's the masterclass item that they come back. And then we have over 100 SKUs, so they can buy whatever, but that makes them sticky because when you give people value, they associate that value with you. Even if you
Mm-hmm.
weren't the one to like do their hair, now they feel like they learned to love their hair through CurlMix. Now continue to tell people about that. So that Facebook group, that was also how we ended up raising the 6 million in crowdfunding money as well. The six point
Oh,
five million
wow.
in crowdfunding. Because we dropped the link in the group. And for my customers, we raised several $100,000 in our equity crowdfunding campaign before we ever sent an email.
Oh, wow. That's
Because
crazy.
they are just diehard curl mixers.
Uh-huh. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's it's great. People don't really think about it because it's one of those things that you build that doesn't necessarily give you a direct ROI. Like everyone thinks about like, oh man, how can I increase my ROAS? How can I do this? How can I get this much out of this money? And that's one of those foundational things where it takes a lot of work and you don't necessarily see the results from immediately, but that people aren't really thinking about or willing to even do, but has kind of that long-term snowballing effect. So I think that's crazy how you guys were able to accomplish that and make such a loyal community.
Thank you, Zach. And you know what? I think the biggest benefit monetarily has been, so we have a VIP program where people can purchase points and
Yeah.
they pay $65 and get points every month. And that program at its peak did 100,000 a month of subscription, but probably does around 50,000 a month of subscription for us. And they're getting points to come back and spend later. It's almost like Fabletics or Audible or whatever. And in economies like this one, where people are canceling anything extra, where
Yeah.
they're not subscribing, we've maintained a minimum of 50,000 a month in subscription for
Wow.
these points because our customers, because I went live for 2 years doing my hair every Wednesday on Wash and Go Wednesday in the shower. Because
Mm-hmm.
I then created a salon, which is like one bowl, but I would do someone's hair live on Wash and Go Wednesdays for a year. And then we moved to this masterclass function where we then brought in expert stylists and our curl coaches who are masters at CurlMix and had them lead the class. So we wouldn't have 500,000 or more subscription annually if we hadn't done that program. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it is that snowball.
And I mean, obviously, there is another side of it too, because you can create the perfect community, you can do all those lives and everything. But what were your guys' strategies, to get people into the community and get people to know about CurlMax? Because you have to obviously sell a product to get a person in there. So, what were some of the strategies that were important for the growth of CurlMax for like the top of the funnel type stuff?
Some of the strategies that we used to get people to learn about CurlMix initially, when we were first starting out, I knew we were like a newcomer to like Diva Curl.
Yeah.
So I was like, who's using Diva Curl? And so I searched the hashtag Diva Curl on Instagram, and then I would send my products to those people, and we would do revenue sharing with them. So we would literally give them 20% of the sale, and they would get a 20% off code for people, and
Mm-hmm.
then I figured out who my best influencers were, and from that I realized, oh, stylists convert a lot more people. And this is before you could even link out on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be like, oh, well, this is back in the day, but no, you couldn't even link out on Instagram.
Right.
So one stylist, people trusted her so much. We ended up making like $5,000 or $6,000 from just her. And that was that month that we did like 30,000 in revenue. And I was like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, we figured something out. Right. She brought in 20% of sales, like just from her Instagram code. Right. And so I was just like, oh my gosh. So in the beginning, we did a lot of revenue sharing with micro influencers. And micro meaning under 20,000 followers, people who were using our competitors or like along those same lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we did that for a little while. And then that's when we started investing in ads. So once we knew who we were talking to, then we could spend money on Facebook because we knew we were
Mm-hmm.
talking to Beauty Pro customers or curly, wavy, wash and go people. And we focused on the wash and go. And then we ended up launching one of those quizzes where it was like, what's my hair type quiz? And for a long time, we
Oh, cool.
ranked on the top page of Google for a while as for hair quiz. We collected, I want to say 500,000 responses at
Oh,
least.
wow.
And we used to run ads and stuff to that quiz as well. But I think eventually, I don't know if it got stale or everybody started having quizzes or what, and so they just didn't convert as well. I don't remember why we stopped, but that quiz was a big one. And we would link everything. So once you have something that works where people are converting, because the quiz wasn't just the quiz, it was like take the quiz and then it ended with like custom results, and then it had a link to the product that you could buy with 20% off, and then it would
Yeah.
take you to a custom landing page with your hair type. Because I learned in Clavio's one of their sessions back when they used to do the on-site trainings, which they need to get
Uh-huh.
back to that. They had that conference. Clavio's conference is top tier, man, top tier. But they haven't done one since before COVID, so like 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was the best because it just taught me about segmentation and benchmarking. Like that's what if they did it, that's one conference I would send my team to every year
Yeah.
because it taught me that businesses doing like under 1 million had maybe 10 segments. Businesses doing 1 to 5 million had like at minimum 20 segments. Businesses doing 5 million or more had like 100 segments. And so what it really meant was that you were getting custom data about your customers, personal data about
Mm-hmm.
your customers, and then sending them personalized messages. And I was like, well, how can I make hair care as personalized as possible? So that
Right.
means If there's 3 hair types, type 2, 3, and 4, right? And there's A, B, and C within each, there's 9 different landing pages that I need to have available. And if I have 6 different products, well, I need 24 landing pages at minimum. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
whatever, like how I got the number. But most people don't want to do the work to make their experience that custom. Do you know what I
exactly.
mean?
I do, yes.
And but the truth is, it worked for a very long time. For years, that funnel worked perfectly. Like we got a solid 2 to 3% conversion in sales from whoever took that quiz. Because when they got to the type 4 landing page, it had people who had kinky hair that looked
Mm-hmm.
just like them, with Facebook screenshots from people who would look just like them with that type of product. And they took this custom quiz. So they took the quiz. I got results on the page that look just like me. This must be accurate. And then they get a follow up email sequence that sends them their results for another 2 or 3 times with blogs
Wow.
about type 4 kinky hair. And we did that for type 2 hair, type 3 hair, for our purple collection, our green collection, all the different things. And so that was like our early funnel that worked really, really well for the business.
That's crazy. That's a very cool strategy. I've heard about that working even in like even in the men's categories with like skincare or even women's skincare and stuff like that. So it's really cool that how you were able to kind of develop that process. But
Thank you.
obviously, you started out with one product, right? What
Hmm.
was the process for creating new products? Like, how were you going to stay true to those customers and be in tune with their needs and what they actually want, so that you could, now come to where you have 100 SKUs?
I think you can be 2 types of companies, right?
Hmm.
You can be the company that says we only have 10 SKUs and this is a commitment to our ethos and we're all about minimalism and da da da, and we won't sell you another thing. Just buy these 10 things and that's it,
Uh-huh.
right? Or you can be Quest bars, or Shea Moisture, or the we sell everything. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we have 1,000 SKUs, and so what? Okay, we're here. We got
Yeah.
something for everybody. And for a while, for CurlMix, I was trying to be like that Shea Moisture, where we sell everything. And then I kind of learned about branding and realized, oh my God, we should try to make this more like proactive, simplify it, fewer SKUs. It's cheaper for the
Hmm.
business. It's better on the P&L. It's all the things, And then I did that, but I think my customers hated
Okay.
it because we literally lost customers in our rebrand trying to be that brand that only sells 20 SKUs. You know,
Hmm.
Hair care is a little different. People expect customization and personalization.
Yeah.
And we were doing that initially and then kind of took it away and tried to make it a system. So I really think however you start is what you have to be consistent with. I think if you're going to do this minimalism route, then you need to be doing that for the next 10 years.
Hmm.
Glossier did it and they kind of held true to that for a while, like a long time. Shea Moisture's always been Shea Moisture had 100 collections, a minimum of 100 collections, and they had about 13
Oh
products
wow.
in each collection. 1,000 products, crazy. $1.6 billion business, right? But they're trying to sell to everybody, so it makes sense. Um, but they also manufacture their own products,
Hmm.
and so do we, right? So you can't really be an everything brand if you're not the one making it. So if you're
Right.
not going to make it yourself and you're going to buy from somebody else, then I think you definitely need to be one of those. We don't have any more than 20 SKUs, and we focus on minimalism, and this is all you need right here. Am I getting away from your original question? You asked, how
No,
did
we
we
were
start
just talking
small?
about how you guys came up with new products and were able to create those, and why you decided to create more, all that kind of stuff. So you're right
In
on
that
topic.
Facebook group. Yep, in that
Yeah.
Facebook group. That Facebook group is where we literally would post. If we thought we wanted to do something before, we would put $1 down. Let's run the idea in Facebook. And we
Hmm.
would post a poll and we would leave it open so people could add their own options. And sometimes they would add things that we never even considered. So, for
Right.
example, we rebranded, right? And we moved away from the pump tops that we had because it was a 4-step system. We had pump tops and everything, but they would break in transit. And we were going into retail. So it's like, well, I can't have pumps that are going to break sitting on the shelf because it's just going to be damages to me.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to tubes. I thought everybody would love tubes. We did not poll people for tubes. And I was like, and that was just so dumb. Like, why didn't we do that? And we launching the Ulta, launch goes well, etc. The Ulta loves our packaging. They love the tubes. They don't want these pumps. You know what I mean? They like it, like it's secure. It's good packaging. We I were gonna consult it to kind of see what happened in the business. Why did we lose some customers? And they were like, why don't you just ask them? Like, see if they missed the rebrand, the old products, the one with the
Yeah.
ugly label, the one that didn't have your brand right, the one that had all this extra text, da da da. 80% of people said they missed the old products.
Oh, wow.
80. And a lot of them were missing the pumps. Some of them were missing the lavender fragrance. And I was like, and I lost some customers who just because they were upset about the fragrance. Like,
Oh, wow.
mind you, the fragrances, I let them vote on the fragrance. They did vote on that, but they were upset. So we brought it back, thousands of dollars in revenue, almost immediately, just bringing it back. And so I have learned, don't guess at anything, y'all. Get a Facebook group and survey people. It's so simple. So simple.
Yeah, you'd be surprised because, like you said, then they could even come up with things that you, in your wildest dreams, never would even imagine and been like, wow, that's a genius idea. And then you just are going to make all this money off of a free idea that you just got from one of your customers.
Exactly. Exactly. They always think of things you just, yeah, they think of things you just wouldn't consider.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the beauty and hair care industry is fiercely competitive. What are some of the things that you've done to stay ahead of those competitors, as far as not only your mission and value, but even just kind of like strategies to be able to continue to grow?
So I'm going to go back to the Facebook group because most of them don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because you look at the bigger brands, they're doing tens of 20, 30, 50 million, 100 million in the stores,
Yeah.
don't have a Facebook group, and they don't have a real community. And so people don't have an emotional purchase when they buy their products. It's more of a
Mm-hmm.
commodity in that sense. So I would say that's one thing we've done. Two, live selling, going live with the product. As the founder, most people are afraid to go live. I am not. I'm a talker, talk all day.
Yeah.
What else do we do that would stay ahead? That VIP program, insane loyalty. So we might lose some. We might have a 25% repurchase rate overall for the brand, but after someone buys twice, it's almost like a 75% repurchase rate.
Oh, wow.
So they're very sticky once they
Mm-hmm.
actually like use the product and love it. And I think that's due to our VIP program. So we implemented that program where they are getting points to come back and buy from a hidden store. So
Yeah.
it's called our VIP store. We've got like 80 SKUs in there. The other SKUs everybody doesn't have access to. It's just this store that the VIPs get. And it took a lot of work to set up. We had to work with some different apps. We had to get some coders involved, make some things a little pretty. It was a little clunky for a little while. Got a little
Mm-hmm.
complaints here and there, but nobody else has this in my industry. And I don't
Right.
even know. I only know a couple of fashion brands that do. You know,
Yeah.
Fabletics, and they're really all connected to the same company, Textile Fashion Group. They
Yeah.
also own, Textile Fashion Group.
Yeah. I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so they own Fenty, Savage X Fenty. They're part owners of Rihanna in that. They're Fabletics, Fit Fab Fun. No, not Fit Fab Fun, I'm sorry. Drew Dazzle, Fab Kids, and something else. They have 5
Mm-hmm.
brands and they all kind of run the same system.
Oh,
Except we
cool.
give our customers full control of their subscription. So we let them cancel or whatever. So they don't have to call anybody. Because we want them to be able to like re-up on it when they want to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that VIP program I think was really innovative, and I'm so glad we did it before a recession, right? Because nobody wants to
Right.
sign up for a new subscription in a recession, right?
True.
And the other thing that I think that we did that cost us financially in the short term, but I think give us 10 years, 5 years, we'll be like, we're so grateful we did this. We
Mm-hmm.
built out our own manufacturing. It
Oh, very cool.
very expensive, very hard to do. I do not recommend to most people. But now that I've done it, now that Kamala's running for president, right? My customers are voting for Kamala. I'm voting for Kamala, right? And she has a famous phrase, "a coconut tree." Like you live it, you exist within the context of what you live. You didn't fall out of a coconut tree, right? So we launched a coconut tree body pudding, and came up with it in a matter of like a couple weeks. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
let's make a coconut cream fragrance. Let's put some champagne mica in it to make it a little sparkly.
Mm.
Let's put a little coconut emoji and a coconut a tree on the label, and boom, it's mailed out to my customers. And we launched it in the last 2 weeks. So several hundred people bought it without reviews because they just trust us. And like we couldn't do that if we were buying everything from China. You
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Now, my P&L has taken a hit having my own manufacturing. We have a 30,000 square foot facility. And, at one point we were doing 10 million a year. Now we're doing like about 5 or 6. But we are on a path towards profitability and should be there towards the end of the year. So I'm excited about that. Then making our own manufacturing has allowed us a level of speed that does not exist for brands of my size most often.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Like generally when you're like, man, I have this idea, I want to launch this product. And then You got to go talk to your manufacturers, see if they can even do it. If they can't do it, then you got to go somewhere else. And then they have to make all this product and ship it all over to you. Like it takes months, right? Like you can't just launch thing 1 month to the other.
And then you've lost the trend. People are not talking about
Exactly.
coconut tree in 6 months. They might not even talk about it until after the election. Like you don't know, it could be something else. Now it's black jobs. The next thing it might be do something from Michelle's speech. Who knows? Like
Yeah.
it could be anything. And so I think staying ahead of the curve, Facebook group, VIP program, the manufacturing facility. Yeah, and you know what now I think is actually going to help me? I was in the fundraising chair where I
Hmm.
was focused on let me find money to grow the business, da da da. And
Yeah.
now I'm kind of more in the weeds than I was before, and I'm seeing things that were either broken or that can be fixed. I'm finding optimizations. Me as the founder who knows big picture, I'm looking at the conversion rate. I'm looking at the landing pages. Let's tweak this and that, filling all the holes that might be in the bucket. I think is really going to help us, and I think that most founders are not able to play in both lanes. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Especially if you don't have the team that you can trust to do the other things properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I want to dissect one of the things that you were chatting about because you yourself said it. It's not something that people do. Um, Dissect the live selling for me. How does that process actually look like, and what do you even do during it?
There's a lot of ways you can do it, right? I know
Hmm.
there's one lady, what's her name? Canvas Beauty from TikTok. She does I feel like she did like 1 million in a couple hours on with her body glaze. Like, and TikTok invited her out to their headquarters to go live, and she made like $1 million in like an hour or two selling her like $20 body butters.
Hmm.
But I think she's gonna do like at least 12 to 15 million online on TikTok this year from live selling. And so she has a big to do with hers, right? And my friend from Sassy Jones, I know at one point, especially in the pandemic, she was doing like 20 million a year. Maybe spending less than $5 million on ads, but she was live selling fashion. So
Right.
I think you do live selling a couple different ways, right? You need somebody who has the gift of gab. I was almost on HSN. I went to the headquarters, the place where they film. I got to talk to the people who do the HSN. I was getting ready to go on. Like, my products were getting ready to go up, and then I pulled out last minute. I was like, I don't think this is a good brand move. I think this is going to hurt us in the long run. But you have to have the ability to talk, like to
Right.
talk. And if you're not somebody who, if you get drained by talking to people, you're probably not going to get a live selling. So you got
Right.
to find somebody who likes talking to people. Number one. Two, you got to be cute. I people, you don't have to be cute. People will watch you. People will buy from you more likely if you do your makeup, make sure your hair is nice, wear a clean t-shirt. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're engaging, right? And I'm saying
You're not
these
going to your
things.
pajamas.
It sounds so simple. What I'm saying is because I work. So if you're not good at live selling, the best thing you can do, if you don't want to pick up your phone, the other thing you can do is go to these expos. Have you ever worked at expo before, where you sit and talk
Yeah.
to strangers who come by? Once you've done that 4 or 5 times, you're gonna be a pro at live selling because a stranger walks up to you and you're like, and oftentimes you'll start off by telling them, this is what I got, buy my thing. That's not how you should start live selling. You should say, oh, what are you struggling with? Oh, what problems do you have with your hair? Right? And that's when you let them start talking. Right? So if you
Yeah.
ever get on a sales call with the reps, they want to sell you an app, new software. Oh, how's your day? What you doing? Tell me, oh, the kids are like, what's going on in the business, and they let you do all the talking
Yeah.
because you're gonna tell them your problem, your kids, or this or that. It's like they feel heard, and people buy when they feel understood, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. How do I do that? Yo, you guys drop a comment. Let me know where you guys checking in from. Oh, you're in DC. Oh, you're in Atlanta. Oh my God, what's the weather like there? What's da da da? How's your hair, you guys? Well, what problems are you struggling with? Oh, I'm struggling with damage. I'm struggling with this. Well, why are you struggling with that? And then you gotta like get them talking back to you. Is like
Hmm.
one of the biggest things. It's also engagement. So your live will continue to grow. Facebook will feed it to more people. They're like, oh, people are staying on her live. Okay. And then it's like you typically need some kind of visual hook. So I'm usually in the shower, right, when I'm doing my hair. If I
Right.
just open my camera and just start putting on lipstick, like, I could do that, but it's just not as visually engaging, right?
Right.
What's more striking is, oh, she's in her shower. Is there water running down? So you hear the constant stream of water. You see me with shampoo in my hair. I'm talking and engaging in the camera. Now, I always have a link in the description because people are like, oh, what are you using? Oh, check out the link in the description. And then typically it's better if you have an offer. So we'll say, oh, I'm doing 20% off right now, or I just have this product it's launched, it's low inventory on it. Make sure you check it out. And then it doesn't have to be long. It can be 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. And you don't even have to really even talk about the product to that depth.
Right.
People buy from people they like. So you really are trying to get people to like you more than anything.
Yeah.
Get people to like you, have a cool demonstration, and then at the end, kind of answer any questions about products because they'll come. And if there are questions that people are asking, it's better than you just being like, I got the best macaroni and cheese you have ever tried in your entire life, you know? So anyway, I didn't have a whole lot of, hopefully that was helpful.
Yes. No, it was. I mean, listening, I think is important, right? Because with the whole like Facebook ad, Google ad, like you're just advertising to everyone and trying to push products down their throat. But when you're actually doing like a live, you're like, hey, let me dissect your problem and see what I can actually do to help you, as if they're coming and walking into your store and asking you questions. And I think that's a huge barrier with like the beauty industry and even like the fashion industry of like people like, well, will I even like this on me? Will it even work for me? Sure, it worked for this person, but I look nothing like this person. You know what I mean? So that personalization is just another extra step to give people that security to make that purchase.
And you know what I also recommend? Robert Cialdini has a book called The Principles of Influence, or Influence by Robert Cialdini. And it's like the 6 principles, right? One is like social currency, social proof. Like, are there other people using it? So my customers usually join the lives. Like, oh, I love CurlMix, I use it. So they're always in the comments, right? Then you got commitment and consistency. Are you trying to fix your hair? Are you committed to wearing your hair natural this year? Then, okay. Then you got appeal to authority. Well, I'm the CEO, so that's that. But you also, I might bring in a stylist. That's an appeal to authority. If a doctor tells you something's good for you, you want to buy it versus just if a founder tells you it's good for you. The other thing is gifting people something. We often give people a gift of sorts, some kind of offer, then people feel indebted to you. So that you have to apply those 6 principles while you're talking, right? And you would apply those same 6 principles on your website, those same 6 principles in your packaging, whatever it is, so we try to do that as well.
That's very cool. And what are some of the biggest kind of setbacks that you guys had in your business, and how did you navigate those challenges?
I feel like I'm dealing with one right now. I told you, I focused on growth for a long time, and that was good until we got into an economy where funding has kind of dried up for CPG. It's like fundraising is cool, but it's not this. Like now, people just want to invest in like AI and then like
Exactly.
AI and something. I forget the other one, but yes. And so I've had to figure out how to get profitable quickly, and that's such a challenge because you're like, okay, what do I actually need to run this business, and what was just kind of fluff, like it was just nice to have. And so what I've done, I had to cut a lot of expenses, and I've had to figure out how to grow outside of Facebook ads. So one of the things we're doing right now is like, Kim, you were going live, right? And you can't go live every single day. I mean, you can, but people have different hair than you. So we're trying to get our customers to go live for us. So we had them audition essentially in the CurlMixer group, the customer Facebook group. We had about 7 or 10 people go live, trying to get another 10 so we can pick our favorite 5. And then we're going to pay them to go live on the Facebook page every day. So one new person each day. And then we're also implementing our referral program. Our customers already refer people, but they're not doing it in the system. And we're going to gamify it. And so some of the things that we're doing is how do we grow outside of Facebook, outside of ads? Now, and the live selling works too, because I post a video on Facebook, we might get 600 views. If I post a live, we get 8,000,
Right.
Like hands down, like consistently 8,000 views. And so I was like, okay, Facebook clearly is telling me what they want me to post. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we're doing. Focusing on profit and doing things that grow outside of Facebook. Referral program, live selling. What's the other one? I'm going to forget. It's escaping me right now. Subscription. Yeah.
That VIP group for sure.
And then also making sure that's fully stocked. I mean, we had 100 SKUs. We weren't stocking everything. We're like, oh, we're trying to be this like proactive type brand. But it's like they want the Shea Moisture. They want the Quest Bar company. They want 1,000 SKUs. Okay, how do we make it feasible for us? And so we restocked the VIP. So just really honestly, at the end of the day, listening to the customer. And that's actually the whole code name of our company is Listen to Brands. And it's just how do we make brands that listen, that do exactly what people want, not what I think they should have,
Right. Yeah, that's super, super key because oftentimes we think we know best and we're like, well, no, this is it. This is the best. They might not see it right now, but it's the best. And it's not always the best. Sometimes the best is just the simple thing that they want, you know?
Ego is the enemy.
Exactly. It
You
is.
all read that book.
What's one of the most important lessons that you think you've learned that you wish you knew before?
I hired way too many of my friends.
Mhm.
Point blank period. Point blank period. And it was
Word.
like I can coach everybody up. Oh my gosh, that was what broke
Preach.
me so many things in the rebrand. Hmm.
I said preach.
And I did coach people up, and they are able to get jobs in an area they weren't able to get into before they worked here.
Uh-huh.
But what am I doing? Cleaning up everybody's mess.
Exactly.
So, and the people who I have left with me are the people who know more than me in their area. And so now I'm only hiring people who know more than me. I'm not coaching nobody else up. I'm so sorry. I come with the batteries already included. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, 100%. Because I feel that for sure. Because at the beginning of my business, I was like, man, I just want to help people. I can give them a great job. I can teach them all these great things. And then you like invest your heart and soul into it. It takes forever to grow. You're spending all this time, and then they're like, well, thanks so much. I don't think this is for me. And you're like, what are you, you're supposed to stay here for like 10 years. Do you know how much time I invested in you? You know what I mean?
And you know what? And see, and for me, it wasn't even so much. If you stay for 2 years, I feel like that's totally fine. I expect you to
Right.
move on. For me, it was the entitlement. It was the you're not paying me enough. For people who are
Oh,
making more
wow.
than me, Zach, like if you're
Wow.
making more than me and I'm not paying you enough, that's crazy. Like yeah, the entitlement. And one of my coaches told me that whenever you start to see that blossom, that entitlement with a team member or with a customer, you got to release them. You got to release them.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed that you've been saying a lot is that you do a lot of consulting, you have a lot of coaching. How pivotal or how important has that been for your brand going out and getting kind of that advice rather than trying to just power through it and figure it out?
You don't know what you don't know. And if you've never built a $10 million e-commerce brand, you don't know how to do one.
Right.
And if you don't know how to do one, how are you going to do it? And
Uh-huh.
so my logic was, well, I spent $120,000 on a collegiate level degree that
Yeah.
I am not doing much with now. I'm not
That was
not
useless.
doing anything with it now. What'd you say?
I said that was useless. I think we all have, right?
Exactly. And I spent 4 years and $120,000 on it, and I was like, okay, I can pay for a mastermind of somebody who I know who's already done what I want to do.
Hmm.
So in the beginning, I had a mastermind. I was a part of Traffic Sales and Profit. It was great. It helped me get to my first $1 million, and probably even my first 5 million. I would say that was a combination of Shark Tank and being in that mastermind, but also eating up any free information I could find on Klaviyo, Attentive, any of those like free resources. And then I found Ezra Firestone. And
Yeah.
I was watching all of his stuff. His email marketing helped me make my first 5 million because I was just watching all his free content on YouTube for years.
Yeah.
And then after I crowdfunded the $5 million, I was on Klaviyo's podcast. I was like, oh, it's like a full circle moment. I got 4% of the 30. I was on Klaviyo's podcast and interviewed. And the guy asked me like, what was one great resource I could recommend to people? And I told them Ezra Firestone. And so then they were like, he interviewed Ezra maybe months later and told Ezra that I raved about him. And then Ezra invited me to come speak at Blue Ribbon in like 2021 to talk about
Oh,
my
nice.
crowdfunding. So cool. And then I met Ezra and I'm like, oh my God, you're like a brother from another mother. Like I freaking love you. I joke. I was like, I never thought I would find so much of myself in like a white man. I was like, we're like
You
the
guys have
same person.
a similar demographic too.
Right? I'm like, you're like me, and like you're a Libra too. Like he's just like me. I'm like, Ezra's my homie. That's my road dog. And so I did that, and then when I met him, I saw what he brought to Blue Ribbon. How he had people in the room that were doing 10 million, 100 million.
Hmm.
The median in the room, the average was 10 million, but it ranged from 1 to 100. And then he brought in the people who were buying his company, or he brought in people who were selling other people's companies, or agencies that he were using, or it was just so much. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I am so glad I came to this. Like this was the best thing. And so I'm like, I'm never leaving because it was just he was the first training I had been to where somebody pulled up their P&L. and
Right.
just show people. Just show people your team should make up this percentage of your business. Your COGS should make up this percent. Your OPEX should make up this percent. At the end of the day, you should have 7% profit. You should not be spending more than this on shipping. You should not be. And I was just remembering like how else would you know that information if you don't join a mastermind or if you don't have a friend who can whip out their P&L in a similar kind of business, to show you,
Yeah.
and then to be 5 or 6 years ahead of you at the same time. Like you're just not gonna get that Googling things on YouTube. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like the YouTube is like the teaser stuff, but like you typically
Mm-hmm.
gotta pay to get the real stuff. Same thing with agencies. Same thing with SEO. Like I've been using the free stuff, but like I pay for SEMrush now
Yeah.
because I want to know what people are spending. I want to know what my competitors are doing. All the things. So I learned pretty early on that if you're not paying for it, you're probably not getting the good stuff.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Like this, I always say that the stuff on YouTube could get you to 1 million a year, but then that's about it. That's about where
Mhm.
it stops.
Exactly. So I've paid for it. Now, what I will say now I paid for some, I don't think I've paid for any like dud programs, I would say. I don't think so.
Hmm.
Um, I've paid for mastermind memberships. I'm pretty much always going to be in at least one while I'm running a business. I was in TSP. I'm not in that anymore. I did that for 5 years. I'm in Blue Ribbon doing that for a few years. I did go to the Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi's workshop. It's like
Oh,
five
cool.
thousand bucks. That was really good because it was more about like exiting. It was more about
Right.
if you want to exit your business needs to look like this. And how do you get your business look like this? Well, here's this whole packet of like step by step things that you need to do. So
Yeah.
I've probably spent more money on education than most people, just because it's also always changing too,
Yeah.
especially in ecom. You got to stay up to date.
100%. 100%. I think one of the unique things about your business is that you founded your business with your husband. How
Mhm.
has that been? Like, how has the dynamic been? I mean, obviously, it's a personal relationship and a business relationship at the time. How did you guys balance that? What kind of challenges did you experience?
It was much easier in the beginning, but I think as the business got bigger, it needed things that neither of us were experts in, and it
Hmm.
made it harder to work together. So I recommend that if you are working with your spouse or partner in the business, that you guys have different lanes of expertise, which is why it worked really well for us for a while, probably up until we
Hmm.
did maybe like our first 5 million in revenue. But as we got to 10, it was too big of a beast. And I really think I wish I had brought in somebody who was more of an expert in some of the areas so that to take the pressure off of either of us because then it made it
Yeah.
harder to communicate. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And because then now their mistakes are bigger, and it's hard to ignore a $50,000 mistake, $100,000 mistake.
Yeah. Stakes are
That
higher.
becomes much more challenging. And then when you have those mistakes, it's like embarrassing for that person. You know what I mean? To have to deal with it in front of the team or the family or the whatever. So I think the goal should not be maybe you need your partner to start your business, but I don't think the goal should be that you guys are running the business forever together. I think maybe
Hmm.
hiring a team that can do it better sooner. And I think that was just my overall resounding lesson, like from friends and family. I should have hired team members that were more equipped in certain areas sooner. I know that now, but it's growing pains. So that's my recommendation.
That's awesome. And then maintaining like a healthy personal relationship. Like, how did you guys separate business and pleasure per se?
In the beginning, it was all mixed. Like we had
Hmm.
no real boundaries. I mean, honestly, it worked for a while, like a long while. It wasn't until I looked at it was like, oh, we haven't been on a date in like 6 months. Like this isn't working. We started therapy and then we started being more communicative and things like that. But I'm not gonna say that it's all gravy. Like it's a
Right.
challenge, and I recommend seeing a therapist, having separation of duties in work, and I don't know. I think we probably would do some things slightly different had we had the information that we have now. I'll say that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think one of the bigger things too that a lot of entrepreneurs face are dealing with like self doubt or uncertainty. What are some of the things that helped you get through those moments of like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Is this even worth it? Like, there's so much risk involved, especially when there's such high stakes of like you were saying of like, man, I could lose $100,000 with a mistake. You know what I mean?
So for me, I've crowdfunded, right? Which means I have taken money from my customers. And so this
Hmm.
is a double side of that. So you might be like, oh, well, you can raise $6 million from your customers. You sure can. but you also have 9,000 people that are expecting you to return an investment.
Yeah.
And so for me, it almost was like, I don't matter how I feel. Like, this is my reputation on the line. I got to make sure I make something of it. And so it's not so much, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say it's for ego, right? Like, 'cause everything's for ego at the end of the day. But honestly, it's my reputation, because I feel like it's going to be very hard for me to do anything else after this, if I don't make this successful. So in the days that I'm challenged, I am empowered by the fact that I'm doing this for more than just me. I'm doing this for the other 9,000 people I raised an investment from, primarily folks who are of color and women and who believe in me. So
Yeah.
I think that motivates me a lot to kind of keep going and to do more.
Yeah. Have you faced any specific biases or challenges in the industry, being, you know, a woman of color leading your company? And how did you kind of push through any of those?
Every day. I mean, I'm always the angry black woman, you know? That's the running narrative. Or even like, absolutely. I mean, I've had advisors who be like, "Oh, Kim's difficult to work with," you know. Like it's that dog whistle politics, right? If I and the thing is, if I was a white man saying some of the things that I say, you would just be like, "Oh, that's just she's just serious about her business," you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
She's just
But
passionate.
she's passionate, exactly. But
Yeah.
if it's me, it's like, "Oh, she's angry," or "Oh, she's difficult," or it's but what they're really saying is I'm uncomfortable and I don't know how to respond, you know,
Yeah.
but people don't want to take ownership for that. I'm trying to think of specific instances. I try to block a lot of those out, honestly,
I'm sure.
because it's hard to be creative when you feel trapped. It's hard to be creative when you don't feel free. And
100%.
so I have to ignore a lot of the negativity I might get online, or the haters, honestly. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, that's here. I mean, fundraising. Black people get less than 3% of venture capital. I'm sorry, women get less than 3%. Black people get less than 0.01%.
Wow.
Crazy. Of the billions and trillions of dollars out there going into venture capital, women get less than 3% of any color. Black, white, purple, brown, Asian, green, whatever, 3% or less. Black people, black women specifically, less than 0.01.
Wow.
So,
That's crazy.
so I had to crowdfund. I had to raise $6 million for my customers, even though I had a $5 million business. Because I would go to VCs and they'd be like, "Oh, we don't really get it," or "Oh, we want to see more,"
Yeah.
and I'd be like, "Well, I've 5x my business in a year. I don't really know what more do you want to
What else do
see."
you want to see?
What I end up doing is spending more time figuring out how to fundraise when I'm the founder that could be executing and figuring out how to grow the business. But
Yeah.
I'm, having to learn how to crowdfund, which is basically a public offering, which takes 6 months. So then they're like, "Well, Kim, why aren't you growing faster?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a black woman." And then it just sounds like excuses. And it just sounds like the
Right.
same thing over and over. I remember I had a VC tell me one time, or an angel investor, "Why can't you raise money?" And I just remember being so frustrated. And I ended up crying on that call. And then he told people that I was difficult to work with. And I was just like, okay, well.
Wow. Wow. Fascinating. That's crazy. Well, you've come through the odds, so congrats to that. I mean, you've definitely pushed
Thank
through.
you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
How would you describe kind of your leadership style? Like, and especially how has it evolved throughout the years as your team continues to grow?
Initially, my leadership style was very, I would argue that I'm still pretty collaborative and I still like to work with others and get people's ideas and things like that. But initially, I kind of had like a free reins. You figure, let you do it, you figure it out, da da da. And then that didn't work. Actually, no. Initially, I would call something out the moment I saw it, and that was bad because it would put people on the spot, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, she's." Because the other thing is, when you're the face of the brand, you're still like a celebrity of sorts.
Yeah.
So when you give feedback to your employee, it's not just the CEO coming down on the person, right? It's, "Oh my God, the celebrity coming down on the person." So then you feel
this
personally
person that I
attacked.
admire and follow, and yeah,
Yep.
my
All
hero
of
is
that.
criticizing me.
Yes. So I was like, what if Oprah gave me critical feedback?
Like, oh,
Like,
okay.
ooh, Oprah didn't like that she was right, but dang, it just made me feel bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm not Oprah, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
to put it in perspective, it was like, who's somebody I admire that I want to make sure sees me in a great light. So in the beginning, I would like correct people right in the moment. And like one time I had an employee slumping in a meeting because she acted like she didn't want to be there. And I was like, hey,
Hmm.
can you sit up? Like, if you don't want to be in this meeting, I understand, but you can leave. And I said it just like that. Oh my God, her world was blown up. She was upset. She was like, it was a whole to do. She was breaking stuff the next day. I was like, wow. Like, now, obviously, I think there were some mental issues there. I don't know, mental health problems or whatever. And I don't say issues. I don't hope I
Hmm.
don't sound inconsiderate.
Yeah.
But I remember she was like cussing people out the next day, throwing things in the office. It was extreme. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, so I can't correct people in the moment like that. Always needs to be off to the side afterwards. And I'm younger, right? I became an entrepreneur at 21. So
Hmm.
I might have been like 25 when I did this, 20, I don't know, younger. Lesson learned. All right. So then I became a little bit more hands off, a little bit more, I'm not going to correct you in the moment. I'm going to be friend at keys with you, a little more friendly. And then I had my executive coach come in to be an interim CMO for a few months. And she was like, Kim, you kind of like messed up the culture of your team. Like they think they can just take off for weeks at a time, with short notice. They think, like I can be late to this meeting, I can get this and that. She's like, you didn't nip these things in the bud, and so now you have a culture problem.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh gosh, okay. And so now I'm very much, here's the checklist of what we're supposed to be working on. Is this done? So and so. You said you were going to do it, blah blah blah. Why is it not done? Okay, we'll address it later. Like, I'm more by the book, but also I'll have a side conversation. So I've
Right.
gotten a lot better, and I think it just comes with time. I think in the beginning you're gonna suck as a leader,
It's true.
especially if you've never done it before and you didn't. And I didn't stay in corporate long enough to learn, and so I've learned. I think I'm much better now at 32 than I was at 24, 25.
Hmm.
But I also know that the best entrepreneurs are in their 40s. So the studies say.
Yeah. Yeah. We still got about 10 more years, so we're good.
Right.
We still got some time to learn. So
Exactly.
what's the future? What's the future vision for CurlMix? What new products, projects, expansions do you kind of have on the horizon that you're excited about?
So the future of CurlMix, I think, is, yeah, I think we are like some version of online digital Paul Mitchell,
Hmm.
where it's like Paul Mitchell teaches like stylists and things like that. We would teach people who are customers and consumers.
Yeah.
And then I think there's this online beauty supply that we are, right? So that's what we're building. I think we'll get to, 30 to 50 million doing that. And then I think we'll expand into retail. But I also think we'll have our own salons that are focused on wash and goes, like this particular hairstyle and cut eventually. Because there's no curly hair chain,
Right.
like at all. Like, how there's a dry bar, there's a Paul Mitchell, there are chains for hair, for straight hair. They don't exist for curly hair. We have none.
Hmm.
So I think that, and I think if it works really well, maybe duplicate it with other brands, and use our manufacturing facility to kind of incubate brands as needed. But that's kind of my future.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I love that.
Thank you.
Well, Kim, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for all the value that you brought. One of the questions that I always ask all the guests is to give a piece of advice to two different audiences. The first set of audience is the person that's thinking about starting a brand. Maybe they have started a brand, but they really haven't made too many sales, under that 30K mark, somewhere around there. And then someone that's, a six-figure and above range. What's your two pieces of advice for those groups?
My biggest piece of advice for someone who's under probably like 100K in revenue, in annual revenue, and they're just figuring things out, I think you got to become the digital marketer for your business. I think you should learn email marketing. You should learn ads. You should learn, and this, you got to pick up a skill. And it's going to be email marketing or it's going to be ads, but you're going to need one of those to get to
Hmm.
your first $1 million in revenue. And then whichever one you're not, hire for the other. So if you're good at email, somebody else good at ads, hire for that one. But if you're good at ads, you need somebody to email. But those are going to be the two core pieces that you need to kind of figure out for your business. And then
Hmm.
I would say that's some really similar advice, probably to get to like 1 million, in my opinion. Those are
Yeah.
the two things you need to learn. And then you need to find some capital. So I use my own credit in the beginning to get capital to be able to run ads and do those things. And then the other thing I would say is everybody was contractors for a long time and should have probably been longer, past $1 million in revenue, honestly. But I made people employees too soon. So that was a lesson. For people who are beyond that, I would figure once you get beyond 1 million, I think you need to figure out what you're doing it for.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing it because you want to sell it quickly for less than 10 million and you just kind of want to get in, get out, get nice little like savings and do something different with your family?
Yeah.
Are you in it because you want to build a $1 billion company and you need to
Right.
fundraise? You know what I mean? I don't know, you know, or are you in it because this is a lifestyle business and no, I want to keep this for the next 10, 20 years and I just want to be able to fund my lifestyle? I think
Mm-hmm.
those are 3 different types of paths for the company. If you build it with the intention of selling it, those other 2 are available to you, right? If you build it with the intention of I'm going to just sell it for profit, under 10 million, cool. If you build it with the intention of fundraising, you may not be able to sell it for that multiple that you're raising on if you don't have certain
Mm-hmm.
fundamentals in the business. And then if you're building it for lifestyle, this is where I think it gets messy because these people never treat the books the way the books need to be treated.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're putting fun things on the books, you know,
Mm-hmm.
cars and houses and da da da. So if you go through an
Taking out a
audit,
bunch of cash, all that kind of stuff.
if you go through an audit, you know, you didn't really prepare the business to sell and you didn't prepare the business to raise money. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to figure out who would want this and what am I going to do with it. And it could be very well be very profitable, but your finances are not in order. So I think one thing that the founder who has more than 1 million needs to do is seriously take seriously your accounting. Because at the end of the day, your business is whatever it is on paper. That is it.
100%.
And I learned that the hard way from having to crowdfund and having to go through a couple audits and, you know, not knowing if I wanted this to be a business that I sell for a couple million early, something I want to raise money for, or something I just want to fund my lifestyle. 3 different kinds of businesses, but either way, you're going to need good books. So make sure you got
Mm-hmm.
good books.
Awesome. Well, once again, Kim, thank you so much for all the value that you provided today. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Can I ask you more questions? And also, where can they buy your product if they're interested in it?
You can go to CurlMix.com if you want to use our product, CurlMix.com. And then if you want to check me out, I'm on Kim Lewis on Kim Lewis CEO on Instagram. KIMLEWIS CEO.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Kim. I really appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. So thanks for taking the time away from family, new home, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate it. This is so much fun.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming again today. This is another episode of ECOM Verified. Once again, I'm your host, Zach Schubert. We do about 140 million a year on SEO and organic Google. So always bringing you the best guests that have the best influence and the best strategies for scaling brands so that you can take these, implement them in your brand, and hopefully see the same exact success. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you on the next one.